In this video, we're going to look at 3 reasons why you might very strongly disagree with a colleague from another culture. These 3 reasons or 3 ingredients are present in your everyday life, even when you're working with people from your own culture, but they don't affect you as much. In fact, when you're working with people from around the world, their effect is multiplied by 10, 100, 1,000, or even more. So if you're interested in better understanding why sometimes your disagreements with people from other cultures are more pronounced, stick around. My name is Brenda. I am a specialist in cultural diversity. I've been living abroad for 25 years now, working abroad, raising my kids abroad, and trying to understand all of these cultural differences that make my life so amazing and sometimes a little bit more complicated, or even a lot. I've made mistakes, but I've also learned so many things along the way because I do a lot of research, especially because I teach cultural diversity training courses. So in this series of videos on this channel, I make videos to help you find shortcuts to understanding all of this a lot faster than I have. So thanks for joining me. Okay, so what are those 3 ingredients? Well, very simple: perception, interpretation, and evaluation. At every moment of the day, you need to know what's going on and you need to understand it the best you can so you can make decisions. And that's just how we have evolved. That's how we make our way in the world and survive and thrive. So perception involves deciding what's happening. Like, at this moment, what is happening? You're perceiving the world, you're perceiving it in the way that you were taught to perceive it in the culture you grew up in. And that's where you learned where to focus your attention, what's important, what's not, because there's too many things happening at any moment to possibly pay attention to all of them. So you have learned to perceive in certain ways, and people from other cultures have learned to perceive in different ways. So that should give us a hint is where we're going with this. So now interpretation. That's the next thing that we have to do in every second. It's like we have to interpret what we are perceiving, like, why is this happening? And that's where we come up with all kinds of theories. If we have enough time to think about it, we can develop pretty complex theories about why things are happening, why someone hasn't answered this email yet, why they said what they said in the last meeting. We can do that, but in the moment, we tend to automatically have sort of this explanation in our mind because we've developed this accumulated experience over time. And we've done that in the context of the culture we grew up in. And our international colleagues have done that in the context of the cultures where they grew up. And third, evaluation. This is where we judge the situation. No matter what we're perceiving, no matter what we think are the reasons for what's happening, the theories that we have to decide if it's good, if it's bad, if it's dangerous, if it's safe, if it's normal, if it's strange. But what's very curious about this is that we tend to be conscious of this part immediately. Our process of perceiving, interpreting, evaluating happens so fast that we tend to simply come out right away with, "That's ridiculous," or "What's going on here? I don't like this," or "Wow, this is fantastic." So we tend to be very conscious of our final evaluation, which is coming from this very immediate, fast process of perceiving, interpreting, and reaching this judgment. And all of this is based on the criteria that we learned growing up in our culture. And it's the same for our colleagues from around the world. Okay, so what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that different cultures perceive differently, interpret many things so differently, and then they evaluate or judge those things so differently. And this is why when we're working with someone from a different culture, this normal process of perceiving, interpreting, and evaluating everything that happens can become much more complicated, and our disagreements, our misunderstandings can be much bigger than if we are working with someone who is more similar to us, who has been raised with a similar background. Now, I'm not saying that just because you're working with someone from your own culture that you perceive everything the same way, you interpret it the same way, or you evaluate and judge it the same way. No. We know that we have differences of opinion with people in our own culture too. And we have people in the same culture who perceive the same situation in very different ways. But what happens is this. Inside our own cultural system, we tend to be much more aware of different ways of perceiving the same stimuli, the same situation. We tend to be at least aware of different ways of interpreting, even if we don't agree. And we also tend to be more aware of the different possible judgments that will be coming up, depending on people's stances, their different positions within our culture, or their different point of view of how they're looking at this particular situation. So the real difference here is that we tend to be more aware of it. We tend to be more able to grasp that they're seeing it differently, even though we don't agree with them. And having that prior awareness can make it easier for us to at least get our heads around what's happening. But when you are perceiving, interpreting, and evaluating differently than someone from another culture who is doing so in ways that you cannot possibly even begin to imagine, that's where things can get quite complicated. And that's why cultural diversity requires us to take more time to get to know each other, take more time for our communication, and also to be equipped in general with intercultural competence, cultural intelligence, and we have different names for that, but that ability to work effectively with people from different cultures. This is sort of like the heart of it, is understanding basically that we're going to be perceiving, interpreting, evaluating differently, and simply grasping that point and understanding how important it is, we become much more curious, and we will ask a lot more questions, and we will take the steps necessary to get into the other person's viewpoint and see things differently. So what I love about this is simply understanding it can make us so much more open, more curious, more interested in what people are seeing from another culture, and it's a very important step to take in building our cultural competence. So that's basically the 3 ingredients that you need to be thinking about, and just by watching this video, you're taking a huge step. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, go ahead and subscribe, and do visit the website because I'm putting new content there every week, blog articles, videos. All of this is designed, again, to give you a shortcut to cultural understanding, to working with cultural diversity, and really enjoying it and being productive. So thanks a lot, and see you soon.